long time ago. There were giant creatures called dragons that roamed the earth. They could fly, breathe fire, and were feared by all humans. But some brave humans felt a special bond with the mighty dragons that went beyond fear. They looked up at the dragons soaring overhead and dreamed of having that same power and freedom. Some ancient tribes even tried to tame and ride the dragons, though most were burnt to a crisp trying. But the idea that humans and dragons could coexist peacefully passed down through generations in stories and cave drawings. Then, after thousands of years, the dragons mysteriously went extinct. Some said it was a great cataclysm that wiped them out. Others believed the dragons had simply outgrown the planet and left to find a new home among the stars. All that remained were their massive fossilized bones and the legends of their majesty. Centuries later, when human technology and science became advanced enough, they tried to bring the dragons back using cutting-edge genetic engineering and cloning techniques. It took decades of failed attempts, cost billions of dollars. Governments, corporations, eccentric billionaires, and everyday people all donated what they could. That perspective, actually seeing a living, breathing dragon again, induced an obsession in the human race. We had to reconnect with those primal giants that once ruled our world, even if it was only fossils and bones that remained of their dynasty. Cloning the dragons became an emotional and spiritual pursuit. Finally, after 50 years of research and failed trials, a top-secret private genetics facility located deep in the Australian outback announced they had succeeded. From a sample of dinosaur DNA encased in fossilized amber, they were able to extract the genome sequence for a beast remarkably close to the descriptions of dragons from ancient legends. The first clone dragon egg gestated, and a tiny winged newborn reptilian creature with the potential to grow into a terrifying monster emerged, blinking and snapping its jaws. Over the following months and years, more dragon eggs were grown and hatched as the facility became a nursery for the first dragons to walk the earth in ages. Grown in a secure outdoor habitat that could contain their immense size, the human scientists watched with awe and joy as the clone dragons developed powerful scaled hides, massive leathery wings, fierce claws and teeth, and the ability to breathe intense jets of flame from their maws that could melt solid rock. The dragons quickly grew to dwarf the largest elephants as they lumbered and flew about their habitats. But they didn't attack their human caregivers or visitors. In fact, they seemed to regard the humans almost with a sense of respect and kinship, approaching them calmly to be fed and gawked at in wonder. The dragons were incredibly intelligent, picking up rudimentary training and commands within weeks. Their mental capacities bordered on sentient as they curiously observed and interacted with their human handlers, giving a distinct impression they understood the relationship between these small, fleshy creatures and themselves as rulers of the modern world. Whether it was through some genetic atavism or a strange psychic link, the dragons displayed clear affection and loyalty to their human caregivers in the same way a domestic dog companion would. You reveled in the attention and care provided to them, seeming to intuit they were the last hope of their kind. Meanwhile, the humans became absolutely enamored with their new dragon charges, forming bonds that transcended simple scientific curiosity and care. Names were given to individual dragons in the creche. Stories and personalities began to develop around each magnificent beast's quirks and proclivities. Relationships built on trust, gratitude, and mutual respect formed exactly like those hinted at in ancient myths and legends. It was as if the umbilical cord connecting humans to the primal world had been reinvigorated after being cut off for eons. Of course, this astounding accomplishment drew the full attention of the world, for both good and ill. Fears circulated about these dragons one day turning on their human masters and caregivers if they truly regained their feral ferocity. Others, like fringe environmental and animal rights groups, blasted the eradication program as an abomination of science that could damage the planet's ecosystems in unthinkable ways. Just as the ethics and security debate reached its most fevered pitch, tragedy struck from above. A strange alien craft descended on the facility one night, unleashing an attack swarm of biomechanical probes that ripped through the human staff with casual, brutal efficiency before fixing their synthesized sights on the dragon enclosures. Clearly, the transcendent feat of recreating species from the deep past had drawn the attention of malign entities from other stars who looked upon the dragons not with awe, but as an invasive plague to be eradicated before they could spread beyond quarantine. Despite the best efforts of security teams and hasty military airstrikes, nothing could deter the whirling storm of probes from neutralizing the electric fences and laser grids defending the habitat. Within hours, there was nothing to stop them from marching on the cowering dragons and their protectors to obliterate this risk to the natural order. As the alien swarms closed their implacable rings around the remnants of humanity's caretakers, a dozen or more massive winged shapes suddenly rose up from the shattered habitats, unleashing torrential firestorms of gargling, screaming hell breath upon the invaders. Out of the inferno charged the full-grown adolescent dragons in their terrible glory, unshackled from their captors' bonds and united as one in their first battle against a common foe. Scales impervious to the plasma bombardments searing the earth, the dragon's own elemental fury, matched and exceeded by the alien swarms at their most destructive. Their bellowing roars shook the very ground as the beasts took to the skies, turning the hurtling clouds of attacker probes into charred metallic conglomerations of glitched, arcing slag with swipes of their massive tails and claws. And so focused were the probes in overcoming the dragons as ground targets that their hive mind coordination faltered when the fiery reptilian juggernauts simply gained total aerial superiority. At air collisions and attacks scattered the compromised attackers across miles of scorched landscape, even as reinforcements airlifted in from the alien craft to eliminate the unexpected dragon threat. But for every flying hunter-seeker platform shredded by a hail of razor-sharp dragon scales, or immolated by searing yawns of cosmic flame, two more rose up to take its place from the endlessly replenished xenoswarms. Even as the surviving humans gathered by the dragon's feet in the ruins of their shattered science facility watched in breathless awe, it was quickly apparent that their savior's ferocious counterattack wouldn't be enough to overcome this nightmarish invasion on its own. Then from the eastern horizon came a rising tide of misshapen shadows resolving into sloping silhouettes cutting across the blood-dimmed skies. More dragons than anyone had counted on were descending from the mainland interior in frenzied flight waves. Hundreds upon hundreds of massive winged behemoths too numerous to be a mere statistical anomaly or lab-grown error. A great migration driven by senses far too primordial and deep to be mere happenstance. As the dragons arrived in Massey, it became apparent that the original cloned clutches had been the first of many eggs hidden across their expansive naturalistic habitat, born from secret caves and secluded forest groves within. These reinforcing dragons had remained undetected from satellite sweeps, sent scrambling from their wildlands by the onslaught against their kin. Tides of churning wings and streaking fire breath quickly proved too much for the hive mind entities to adapt around, even with their advanced spatial manipulation fields and boundless supply of celestial attackers. Titanic-tailed whiplashes and molten vortices raked indiscriminately across their ranks endlessly as more and more dragons answered the mental keening of their enraged progenitors broadcast across the psychic resonance of the planet itself. Even adolescent dragons, however, still proved pathetically outmatched against the overwhelming and remorseless waves of biomechanical constructs and StarCraft technology, however they fought. For while their hides and streaking comet breath could keep the attackers at bay temporarily, the dragons' downdrafts and impact zones only added more fused material from Earth's crust to regenerate the swarms in time. Streams of raw planetary ore and forest detritus were aggressively stripped from the ground and reformed into autonomous swarm units and entrapments to restrict the dragons' movements mid-air. Thinning, netted patterns of searing force shears lassoed the wings and tails of fighting dragons by the thousands, constricting their aerial mobility as surviving quarry. All should have been lost as pockets of dragons, and humans were steadily overwhelmed, boxed in by the replenished attacker units from the sprawling alien craft. Then, the concentrated cosmic light show suspended in midair gave way to long, mournful calls echoing across the valleys and foothills. Like primordial whale cries spanning entire oceans, the low, undulating tones of massive adult dragons answered the hyper-reality crisis raging across the planet. Ancient near-mythical beasts phased directly through the ground to rise up and join the beleaguered defense in terrible displays of extinction-level burning majesty. Scaled primordial mounts, straight from darkest prehistory, advanced with earth-trembling steps, each emergence point marked by explosions of geysered rock and steam condensing back into liquid strata. Terrifying dragons from before the rise of dinosaurs sounded their materialization from the planet's core. As swirling plasma jets lashed down from fusion-bright canopies of wings, dripping with cosmic radiation unfurled. Newcomer behemoths reared on clawed hind legs and unleashed the kind of extinction event, burning streams that could have desiccated all life on Earth back to algal films during their prime epochs. Biomechanical explorers and probes twisted into fractal pretzel patterns and evaporated instantly on contact with these ancient breeding guardians' elemental rage. Anything returning fire was met in kind with blinding beatific hellscapes of thermonuclear devourment, instantly reconstructed in the distortion fields surrounding the cosmic dragon's entry points from higher dimensions. Great writhing mounds of near-sentient planetary dragonfire quickly overtook and dissolved thousands of armored attackers and disruption fields, with hyperthermal downbursts expelled at point-blank like solar ignition events, compressed to singular atomic funnels of gravitation frustum atomizers. Inexorably, the alien swarms rapidly depleted under the directional radii of ontological reignition physics only dragons from the apotheosized birth spectra of Sol itself could command. Their alien craft retreated as fast as their dimensional warp drives could carry them, unable to reprogram their entire exploratory mission in the face of relentless resistance from Terra's ancient stewards and their lesser progeny cloned from the same source sequences. As quickly as the invasion had erupted, it then flickered away into hyperstratospheric escape vectors denied any purchase or outpost by the prehistoric defenders. And though hundreds of humans and young dragons perished in the opening alien incursion, the sacred primal entities roused to protect their garden world had proven unassailable by even the most advanced future attackers anti-entropics could field against them. Left behind and scorched, glassy desert plains and irradiated stonelands demarcating the dragon's fiery retrograde across Australia were only melted past patterns where indelible wings of focused starseed fusion had irrevocably passed. These wound scars soon enough began throbbing and slowing off crusts of sublime debris as the terravening dragonfire cooled from active flashpoint incandescence back to natural terrestrial background levels. But the adolescent dragons and their human keepers knew the truth which these cosmic amnion markings left for them to inherit, that the creatures they cloned and reintroduced to Earth were not recreations or bygone beasts revived with artifice. They were but mere harmonic chords spun out of creation's first choral resonance as woven by dragon fire across the universe. Dragon call along in spirit if not ancestral form, now brought forth from dormant chrysalis by the daemonic urgings of their transgalactic elders. Dragons saw their true potential restored as resolute guardians of Gaia's nurtured biome from all starbred threats beyond the sanction of natural equilibrium. No longer would crude vanguards of ravenous machine organisms from inundated realms ever be allowed to wrest and subjugate Earth from its allotted cultivation as a wild cosmic nature preserve. Rapacious horrors spawned from desecrated ghost nexus worlds, coldly determined to extinguish all living potential beyond the encode Maz, whence they first rendered their defiling genesis unto existence, were permanently disbarred from despoiling fertile grounds under dragonkind's imperial watch. Your dragons veered skyward, disappearing into the transient hazy afterglow of their resplendent flanks and crests. But their garrisoning thermal wardens and obsidian silhouettes did not slink back into terrestrial deeps or abandoned cliff rookeries. Instead, they closed formation like interconnected systems of atomic winds around the human outposts and domiciles that survived their paroxysmal interventions unspoiled. From such tidal wellsprings of living cosmic plasma solidified basking complexes, honoring the humble nurturing humans had afforded the dragons in return for their undying patronage. Covered hatcheries and breeding chambers were festooned with carved effigies, unmarred in the upheavals, coalescing into calcified shrines through induction fields, polished by wave patterns of dragon fire. In the churning atmospheric drafts threading between these fused middens, each human encampment ringed by smoldering reactor altars and sanctuary plinth congregations, carried skyward the discernible melodies of dragon-speak woven into acclimating stellar frequencies for survival under their sacrosanct vigil. For untold ages rooted in time's cyclonic forever, humankind had gathered itself with celebrating chants and ceremonial renewals beneath the molten skybursts of dragons piercing heaven itself on gauzy, ethereal tides. Only now had the cryptic meanings behind such indelible cultural memories been reaffirmed in their full prophetic clarity. The reunion of humanity's birthright to the benevolent custodians of life itself beckoned all noble thinkers and dreamers forth into their true cosmic mantle as dragons, cherished consorts, and associates. Untold evolutionary steps, short of dragons' boundless vastation, yet inviolably sharing their elemental oath to abide by all creation's laws. In the years following the fateful alien invasion, the bond between humans and dragons became unbreakable. The adolescent clone dragons fully matured into colossal, majestic adults, while many of the ancient cosmic dragons that emerged from the Earth's core opted to remain on the surface, forming the vanguard of a new joint protectorate over the planet. Awestruck by the sheer power and primordial wisdom of these dragon elders, humanity humbly acquiesced to their guidance, treating the fire-breathing behemoths with reverence and utmost respect. Advanced human science and technology, combined with the metaphysical abilities of the dragons, ushered in a new era of unparalleled cooperation and shared purpose. The dragons assisted in rapidly developing a unified planetary defense system to safeguard against any future alien threats. Their control over volcanic flows, tectonic forces, and celestial metaphysics allowed erection of mobile molten fortresses straddling the Earth's tectonic plates. Meanwhile, human innovation accelerated construction of elaborate subterranean sanctuaries and redoubts shielded from orbital invasion by layers of dragon-scale armor. On the surface, the great dragons set up rotating patrols and observation stations across every continent, vigilantly monitoring the skies for any unidentified spacecraft attempting to breach the airspace. Humanity benefited tremendously from the wisdom and perspective of these ancient, near-immortal creatures who had witnessed the birth and death of entire stars and planets across unimaginable stretches of cosmic time. In turn, the dragons grew immensely fond of their adopted human companions and subjects, becoming fiercely protective of the civilizations that had fought so hard to revive them. Though dwarfed by the sheer size and power of the dragons, human cultural and scientific exchanges nurtured profound mutual understanding and respect between the two vastly different species. With the protection afforded by the dragon guardians, human society entered a new golden age of prosperity. War, famine, and most conflict faded into distant memories, as the dragons enforced a unified world peace and harmonious balance with the natural environment they had once ruled over. Humanity became permanent stewards and curators of Earth's growth and flourishing under the tutelage of the great dragons. In time, some of the eldest progenitor dragons returned to the cosmic spaces between worlds from whence they originated. Satisfied Earth was finally under worthy guardianship again, but the majority remained ever watchful over the fragile flowering of human potential. Now seated across the Earth, soaring on perennial patrol routes through the skies and promising endless years of shelter and security in exchange for humanity's fidelity. Literature and spirituality underwent a renaissance of dragon-inspired myths, aesthetics, and philosophies that celebrated the sacredness of all life and the importance of custodianship over the natural world. Humans found themselves not the rulers of the planet, but rather humble curators honoring the ancient lineage that preceded them on the Earth by billions of years. And children grew up learning the ancestral languages and lore of the dragons, respecting them as elders deserving of reverence. In return, the noble dragons watched over each generation, offering guidance while imparting their secrets earned over cosmic epochs of existence. The moments of conflict arose. The bond held firm as the two became true companions shaping the future together. In the passing millennia, the human race spread out among the stars, establishing colonies on other lush exoplanets and terraforming dead worlds into fertile gardens. But always at the forefront of these expeditions flew the mighty dragons, serving as vanguards scouting new homes and ensuring human habitats escape the threat of alien invasion or exploitation. Those rare times where hostile alien or synthetic civilizations made the fateful mistake of subjugating human colonies or disturbing new dragon breeding grounds, apocalyptic firestorms delivered righteous vengeance from the immortal enforcers. Earth and its legacy was to be shepherded across the galaxy under the watchful aegis of the ancient dragon lords. So it went that the human race went forth among the stars, protected and nurtured by its scale-backed guardians against any threat, just as it had been at the dawn of its cosmic reawakening on Earth so many eons ago. Ensured of perpetual prosperity and safety, humanity attained its wildest interstellar ambitions, while remaining forever indebted to its first, greatest, and most devoted allies, the timeless dragons